Okay. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us here at Overbond. Today we'll be going over our enhancements within the buy side and speaking to how fixed income can be automated and some of the enhancements that we've been working on throughout the year here at Overbond, and speaking with our clients and prospects from that perspective. Just by way of introduction, hi, I'm Hack. I run business development sales here at Overbond. Prior to coming to Overbond, I had started off my career in fixed income trading, worked at JP Morgan before moving into fintech technology about a decade ago. I will let my colleague Vuk give his introduction.
Thank you very much, Haim. My name is Vuk Magdalenic. I'm founder and CEO, but I work really closely with both Haim and Vidal on client use cases. I'm very excited about today's topic, which is going to focus on smart order routing, AI enhancement, separate bid-ask liquidity score that is obviously focused on buy-side use case. But Overbond over the years has matured models that we deploy to sell-side credit trading desks as well. My background is in credit trading, structured products, and trading system implementations as a consultant prior to Overbond. And I will call on Vidal to introduce himself as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Vuk. So my name is Vidal Mera. I head up the product side of things here at Overbond. Looking at the name list today, I see a few familiar faces that hopefully will recognize me from my market making days back at RBS and Numis. So with that, I'll hand you back to Haim.
Excellent. And thank you so much for that, Vidal. And I think that, as we move into this conversation today, at the end of it, we'll also have some Q&A. So if there's anything that you want to kind of put aside, we'll be happy to come back on that at the end of the conversation. Vuk, do you mind giving us a little bit of background why to build a SOR sizing order routing tool for fixed income traders?
Sure. Thank you, Haim. I think over the years, obviously, we've talked to a number of buy-side desks that are prospect clients and engaged into a conversation around efficiency of execution, perhaps cost of execution, or how one can minimize cost of execution. When it comes to credit, obviously, we are dealing with the variable liquidity profiles for a number of securities. And the pain of being always in control of and achieving best execution or discovering liquidity efficiently was voiced on few occasions. So in collaboration and through these discussions, we've really established a nexus for the product we'll talk about today. I think in equities, in FX, we've seen solutions that are somewhat similar. In credit, I can tell you it's incrementally harder to achieve something that systematically, with precision, coverage, speed, measures optimal, what we call path to best execution, especially when it comes to trades that are sizable, or naturally when rebalancing comes sided, bid, ask, and that's why this notion of separate bid, ask pipelines was born. So overall, it's a quest to be more efficient, to execute with a lower cost. And it's a product that solves certain pains that we all know exist in credit right now.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Vuk. And as we kind of look into the features that you want to take into account while building out a sizing and smarter router tool within fixed income, can you give us a little color there, what we've kind of done at Overbond from that perspective?
Yeah, so, over the years, we've focused obviously on data aggregation, mapping various data sourcing inputs to master, doing so real time so that we can take benefit of this, call it correlation, AI optimization comparison between post-trade, pre-trade, features and data sets that are really relevant there are how much this bond actually traded, how much it settled, versus how much or how frequently it was quoted in a pre-trade streams. Features that specifically move the needle in terms of the precision, and we'll see this in the demo later on in the presentation today, and was almost necessary for any semblance of smarter to router algo, is actually size adjustment. So in credit, if we look at composites out there, they come flat of size, it's indicative bid ask, and measuring how much bond actually traded in the post-trade world, what's that normal daily traded volume, is a feature we've specifically engineered for this product called total market capacity. AI Optimizer or total market capacity delivers size adjustment. So I can give you an example. If you wanted to trade, let's say, 10 million of this bond, either buy or sell, it would actually be very different than if you wanted to trade 1 million, with the view that you will size, will dictate how many chunks, if at all, and what is your kind of protocol venue selection.
Excellent. And in terms of a trader's visualization into an optimal execution plan, I know that we'll have the demo a little bit later, but what are some of those key points that you think are most, from a visualization perspective, building that execution plan?
It's a good question. I mean, I'll start by saying Overbond is a middleware provider. We really focus on backend, so your cloud compute parallelization that can do this analytic and refresh at the tick level, so 0.3 seconds on average. Stream that feed with all of the necessary data elements that are modeled via API into the what we call native technology at the trading desk. So the idea is it's not another login, it's not another platform, it's an API feed into your trading desk. However, there's some acceleration when it comes to having a handy, all optimized visual that can that's ready to use. And from that perspective, we did build and accelerate a GUI widget with some of the OMS provider partners that we'll present to you later on in the presentation.
Excellent. And in terms of last kind of piece of the puzzle, what parts, what types of data are we aggregating to build this out specifically?
Yeah, so on this kind of credit automation journey or a more efficient credit trading workflow, both more mature for Overbond at the beginnings was a sell-side use case. Now, obviously, talking more specifically around the buy-side use case. There are some options in terms of the venue protocol selection out there. So we needed to source data and model on that data that's representative. So for instance, RFQ data and flows and volumes, as well as, let's say, venues that are more specific on all-to-all dark, maybe in a smaller trade size, but still you can lift certain firm liquidity that way. As well, dealer quotes X's either directly through an API to a buy-side desk, or through dealer aggregate quotes X's venues like Neptune, for instance. So in aggregate, this particular product today is what we call a layer 2 or a single tenant product. It would aggregate data and data connections that desk already has, and it would not commingle that with, let's say, another buy-side desk. But the model will run cross-venue protocol so they can deliver this indication of path to best execution.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Vuk. Vidal, would you be able to have the demo and going over the GUI that we would be inputting into the OMS or EMSs at the different buy-side clients providers that we have?
Sure. Thanks, Haim. So, firstly, just to give you a very high-level overview of how the Overbond analytics work. This is a standard pricing screen. We have our confidence score here, and we have a tier. Now, what our tiering represents is a combination of price, confidence, and liquidity that our model has at the current moment in time for the current icing you're looking at. So you can see as we go down the list here.
But Vidal, I don't think that you're showing presenting anything at the moment. I don't see you presenting anything.
It says on my screen I'm presenting.
Do you see it?
Audience, do you see Vidal's screen?
I don't see it on the live.
Plus sign on present.
So did you press the plus sign on present?
Yeah, it's presenting. Do you want to pull up the Kobe live screen, Haim, and show it from yours?
Let me see if pull it up. 1 second.
And while Haim is putting that on, Vidal, maybe you can just go over a little bit of how does the algo work from a conceptual standpoint, looking at different protocol venue selection chunks.
Sure. So, in essence, we take 2 years worth of data from the client, so that will be trade history. We train the model. And we then produce an out-of-sample result set. This is part of the backtest process, which is important because this model, as Vuk initially stated, is bespoke to each client. We produce this out-of-sample response that showed that we use data that wasn't included in the training data that allows us to produce a fair result that isn't skewed by that training data set. It means that the results will be more meaningful and presented without bias. Now, from that data, we can see historic performance. So it could be historic performance of a particular dealer against a particular bond. We can also see performance of that particular dealer against a group of bonds issued by the same issuer. And that allows us to produce the various analytics. So we've got the screen up now, so I'll take you through this. So on the left, you'll see the Charles River widget view that some of you, of course, are already using, so you'll be very familiar with this. And the key distinction is that we now have this bid and ask liquidity that Haim just highlighted now. Now that's the bit that Vuk was mentioning based on feedback provided from you, our client base. We've introduced this, and this allows us to highlight when liquidity is skewed slightly towards the bid or to the ask. So that means when you're initiating an RFQ as a buy-side firm, you can have a greater degree of comfort without prior to actually initiating that RFQ, that the dealer is likely to stand up to the size that you're looking at. So if we move over to the right-hand side, this is the smart order routing piece. Again, it's designed as a widget so it can fit into your existing OMS infrastructure. And we have multiple lines there. So we have, for example, auto, dark, we have direct if you have direct dealer connections, we have RFQ, which of course is likely to be the most active one, and we also have an OTC route as well, so where we can do a historic look back as part from the training data provided, and that will show who the best dealer for this particular bond at this particular time is likely to be. And that will be based on not only, of course, historic performance, but also any axes submitted and, of course, live market pricing. The routing algorithm will take in the size that's initially been input from a ticker, which will come from the trade blotter. So by clicking on the trade blotter, the ticket will be populated. You then can, of course, adjust the size if you want to upsize to whatever is required. It then allocates a size across various venues, and you can select whichever ones are most relevant to you. So for example, if your preference is to trade via RFQ, then it may say that the upper size for RFQ is perhaps 5 million for this bond. If you want to go bigger, then you should go via the OTC route, and the optimal dealer to call for this particular ISIN is dealer X. And so that's effectively how the routing algorithm works, and why perhaps it's different to existing more traditional routing that just looks to see what the current best price is at this exact moment in time.
And Vidal, maybe I can just ask you one question. Does it prescribe in terms of the going directly to OTC versus executing more electronically? And then if clients have preferences in terms of their execution style, can they stress or limit certain options?
Absolutely. So you have complete freedom to choose which execution protocols are relevant to you, and the routing will only take into account the ones that you've selected as being relevant to you.
Excellent. And Vidal, would you also be able to kind of give an idea of kind of when we look at what we're putting on, first of all, on the tiering and the recommendation, but the main drivers that are then building out the actual smart order router as well?
Absolutely. So under the hood, there's, of course, a lot going on here. And the key piece is really around the price analytic that, of course, is constantly moving at the tick interval. And that basically will, as you'd expect, change very frequently throughout the day, be it because the credit spread has moved or because the underlying treasuries, bonds, whatever it may be, has moved. So that's this top chart, this top piece here that is being shown. And you can appreciate it's a bit difficult to see, but in between the lines, you would see there's some small X's, which are actually the trace prints. So you can see the correlation between the Overbond pricing and actual trades viewed on trace. Now, underneath that, the second box is the tiering. Now, this is very important, as I alluded to at the start, because we can see here that this bond, whilst at the end of it, at the time period, is a tier 2 bond as by our classification. However, we can see that it's moved around. At points, it was in tier 3, the lowest category, and at one point, it actually popped up to tier 1. And the reason that's so important is because where you have the ability to time your execution, if you wait till it ticks up a tier, transaction costs are likely to be lower, and you'll be able to reduce margin over an extended period by trading when these bonds tick up to a higher tier. So if a bond's an average of, say, tier 2 and it ticks up to tier 1, then you should have confidence that now would be a very good time to execute, again, where you have the ability to do so. Then the chart below is our bid and ask liquidity score. So you can see that whilst they track each other, they do cross at various points. We can see there's dips, particularly here in the ask liquidity, and again, ask liquidity trails off at the end. So that that will correspond to, it could be the bid offer widening, perhaps the bid remains constant and the offer gets moved up. So you can, these things are modeled, and it enables us to provide a much more accurate response when we're displaying the optimal routing path. And then below we can see the traditional confidence score that moves up and down as very similar to the tiering, because tiering, of course, is very correlated, being driven by liquidity and confidence. And this bottom chart is the execution score, which is the combination of the liquidity and the confidence score that ultimately drives this tiering in the second box.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Vidal. And I think one of the key pieces of kind of what we've gone over so far today is that Overbond has an immense amount of interoperability to work with your current OMS or EMS, depending on how your fixed income workflow is currently built out today. In early days, adopter of FTC3. We've also worked with OpenFin, Interop, Rapid Addition to build out these different connectors and fixed connectivity APIs, as well as Excel add-ins. So when it comes to being able to implement our product for the different buy-side clients, we want to make sure that we're as interoperable as possible from that perspective. Me and Vuk were yesterday at the FIS Innovation Day for the buy side. And one of the biggest pieces, and I'm actually taking a quote from Vicky Saunders from OpenFin, is a toggle tax, right? As a trader, you don't want to be going through multiple different systems from that perspective. So the ability that over at Overbond, whether you're using Charles River, Aladdin, Flex Trade, any of these other providers, we'd be able to integrate quite easily into that fixed income workflow from that perspective. And it's also less of a tech resource as well on your side. We know that everybody today is very resource constrained from that perspective. So we make sure that we can implement that as soon as possible. So when we look at the layer one piece, we need to make sure that that is also accessible as easy as possible from a price feed perspective. So we built out our Excel add-in for that purpose, but then also we have the WebSocket API feed as well. So if the clients find that that's more useful, or just embedding it directly into the OMS from that side of things. The other piece is we work with other OMSs and EMSs to make sure that depending on the workflow, because some have moved to SaaS and some are more of an on-prem solution. So depending on that piece, we have an interoperability that we need to work with as well from that perspective. So I think that from my side, one of the next big pieces as we kind of look through this workflow, besides the speed and the ability to recommend from the workflow perspective, when we look at a return on investment, Vuk, and kind of how they can actually also, there's a dollar sign attached to bringing on Overbond from that perspective. And today, any additional P&L or any additional add on top of a cost, I think is very valuable for both on the buy side and the sell side. So can you speak to that a little bit to the audience, both kind of what we're doing on the buy side from helping them with producing P&L or ability from an best execution perspective, and then on the sell side, what we're normally looking at?
Sure. Thank you, Han. So I maybe anchor my comments in first, just efficiency in sheer data aggregation, processing large data volumes. There's a pain in that. And I think we've kind of, as a vendor, focused on solving that pain, focusing on first pre-integrating various data sources into one, doing so in live streaming environments so that it can, run at the tick level. It can be all part of what we call serverless cloud architecture that can stream with, very, a predictable, stable spec to your trading desk, and it becomes core of your trading infrastructure. So you have sheer efficiency in, sourcing. Let's say in an example of USD, we have a lot of look back, sometimes 6 months, sometimes a year on post-trade data, which is trace. But in euro-denominated credit, we don't have like consolidated tape. So we actually aggregate something that comes closer to trace in USD as a combination from settlement. These are our partners, Euroclear, Deutsche Börse Clearstream, MiFID II reported APA. And those sources are very instrumental to get to that size adjustment in euro-denominated credit. So there's efficiency in sourcing data through one and then having it in one pipe. From a pre-trade standpoint, you have now various venues. Some need to be actually streaming and calculating what's inventory on offer, how firm it is at the tick level. So there's efficiency in that. But I think your question, Chaim, was more around, okay, we'll put this algo in place. How does it perform? How do we measure, let's say, in a core buy-side use case that this algo is, when executing, let's say, in tier 1, and I think Vidal showed us that these tiers per CUSIP change intraday. On average, if you execute, let's say, in tier 1, what happens? So there we've done some back tests, and I think data speaks for itself. Normally, a fund, let's say, in USD investment grade for a quarter, backtest could be on 6,000-7,000 trades. On average, if you execute 30 to 40% of those in tier 1 versus when the bond is in tier 2, you can expect to have reduction in the distance to mid as a gauge of cost of execution. That reduction depends on the flow. On average, could be, in this particular case and volume, about 1 or 2 cents. Now, it depends, product sum, how much volume was rebalanced and what's the total amount, but it could be significant benefit from that perspective. Now, on a sell side, slightly different take because our models are more around auto RFQ response. And then in that auto RFQ response, specifically in the RFQ protocol, distance to cover. So minimizing kind of, at the same hit ratio, distance to cover. So you win enough of a profile, but you're not paying up to the P&L. So I guess sell side, buy side, slightly different measurement. But in general, these are there to be accretive to the desk and to deliver an ROI that makes it worthwhile implementing.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Vuk. And Vidal, can we just have a little look on the layer 1 side? I know we touched on it earlier about the tiering and the recommendation piece.
Sure. Okay. So here we have, as I mentioned, our layer 1 price feed. So that's more of a market generic feed without bespoke client data training. We can see this, I pulled up orange here, denominated in euros, so we can see the entire curve. We've got the description, icing, the typical static data fields you'd expect to see, currency, tenor, etc. And then we have the Overbond analytics, such as confidence score, the tiering. So you can see here with a high confidence score greater than 1, the bonds moved up into tier 1, whereas this one here on the next row has a confidence score of 0.76, and that's currently shown as a tier 2. And it could be that earlier in the day, this particular bond may have been higher, it could have been lower. This changes constantly throughout the day. And we can see the modeled bid ask here. showing that even though it's a tier 2, that actually this bond is relatively liquid, and so we still have quite a tight bid-ask in this scenario. But of course, it depends on the bond, as we can see here. This one just ticked is a tier 2, a lower confidence score, and we can see that also correlates with the fact that the bid-ask in this scenario is wider.
One thing, Chaim, I would add on this screen in particular is that from the just relative value comparison perspective, there's some features that were built in that compare this particular CUSIP ISIN with a larger cluster of similar ISINs, either by fundamentals, like similar tenor, rating, parent issuer, sector, subsector. But also, benchmark universe of bonds, like let's say a benchmark index or an ETF. So let's say if we say that it's liquid, it's not like the whole market is liquid or vice versa. There's this adjustment in terms of the unit of market risk, as we call it, that also looks back 6 months on post-trade data and says, okay, today is a normal market. This bond indeed deserves that tier 1.
And one of the most important parts of that is we know that a lot of people are getting into portfolio trading as well now, and having that visibility into that bundle, I think, very quickly, instead of having to try and decompose it, is a very big value add.
Absolutely. You can pass it on like hundreds of bonds quickly. Yeah.
I asked in the LinkedIn live chat if there was anybody that had any questions. If you could type them in, that would be great, and we'll be more than happy to answer on our side. So I'll leave that open for a little bit until we get those questions. What we're doing in December as a Hanukkah, Christmas, festive year end is if anybody would like to participate in a live cohort. Back in August during the summer, when it got a little bit quieter, to basically be able to look at a new price feed, see what kind of value Overbond can add to your process on the desk, and be able to kind of look through from that perspective. Please reach out to us at info@overbond.com. Also, if there's anybody that's was participating today on the sell side, we'd be able to do a back test where we could show you the margin optimization of the model as well from that perspective. I don't have any questions coming in on LinkedIn. Vuk, is there any last pieces, pearls of wisdom that we think we should import on the 30 plus people that we have here today?
I really don't have any more comments. I would encourage you to reach out if you do want to be part of this testing cohort. I know December could be a slower month, but it could also, for the same reason, be a good month to look at the new piece of technology that can help you in your workflow, that can really move the needle when it comes to efficient or lower cost of execution. So I would encourage you to reach out. info@overbond.com is our handle, or any one of us on this call individually.
Excellent. I will keep it open for another moment, see if we have any questions come in. Let me see here. Don't see anything yet. Otherwise, I think we can give the team back some of their day, and we'll also follow up with everybody some of the materials that we went over during presentations.
Thank you.
Oh, he's 1 second. Ryan has asked, what sectors and markets would you say is this working in? And I think that's actually a very good question. So Vidal or Vuk, would you like to go over what, first of all, what's kind of first use case for us within the corporate market, and kind of whatever we're doing from that perspective?
Yeah, sure. So definitely the focus for us over the past year in particular has really been corporate credit. Corporate bonds denominated in euros and dollars. We've had very good results with investment grade and high yield bonds. So I'd say definitely those are the sweet spots. Euro, dollar, high yield, and investment grade. We do have EM coverage as well, so that would be hard currency, i.e., perhaps LATAM in US dollar. That's that sort of thing. But definitely, I'd say it's probably fair that the majority of our client base has a skew towards investment grade and high yield corporate credit.
Thank you so much, everyone. I don't see any other further questions coming in, so we'll give everybody a little bit back time, and please feel free to reach out on those live testing and other pieces, and have a great Friday tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you very much.